Hi there, this is Phil with Phil Effects, and we've got another tutorial this morning. This one's fairly important. This is one that has flummoxed me for a while, and I know it's an issue with my students have had some difficulty, and it's understandable. And what we're going to do is set up what's called a treadmill walk cycle. And a treadmill walk cycle is when you have a character, and you've set the character up, and the character is walking stationary in place. So I've blocked out a walk cycle here, and so we've got Walker, and he's looping and he's walking in place. And the difficulty comes, well, it's a little tricky to set up, but once you get that animation set up, the problem is when you want to then take that and have your character walk in time across the stage, all right, and not have the character look like they're ice skating. So let me show you an example of that. So we've got Walker here, and the way this is set up is you've got the basic right toe, the right leg, the hip, and the left leg, and all the animation has been placed on that, and those three sets of drawing layers then are placed underneath the peg. And so we take the peg and we animate the peg across the stage, and that's how Walker looks like he's walking across the stage. So let's go ahead and look at this. And as he's walking, you should see the problem becomes obvious, okay? The difficulty is in trying to synchronize the speed at which you did the feet and the speed at which Walker is now moving across the stage. And 9 times out of 10, this issue becomes a problem because what ends up looking like is he's almost doing kind of a reverse moonwalking. I call it ice skating, where you can see when the feet are planted, okay, he's sliding across, all right, and the feet are essentially ice skating across the ground. And it becomes very, very difficult to try and fix this in such a case that he's not skating. Well, there actually is a way to do this, and it's not too terribly difficult. Be forewarned, it does involve a little bit of math, but we're not talking calculus here. And so I can show you the finished results, and the finished results look quite good. And you can see here's Walker, he's going across the stage, and his feet are locked in place, and he's not ice skating. Now, I'd be the first to admit that I could probably clean the leg motion up a little bit, but the feet themselves are not skating. And so you can absolutely accomplish this so you don't get the ice skating effect. So let's go through how we do that. So I'm going to start with the Walker treadmill here. And let's go back in time. Here he is. And let me compress my time back down to the proper number of frames. And I have set Walker up. And we have, the way this is set up is I've used step frames. All right, so we have step keyframes. So here's Walker in the first contact position with the right leg forward, and I've got my little guide up here, and then we go to the down position, we have the passing position, and we have the high position. All right, then we have contact with now the left leg down, the down position, passing position, and the high position. And then we come out to here and we stop at 24 frames because if this is a cycle, the very next frame after this is right here, which is the next contact position. So this is the window that we work. And I've got it blocked out using my step keyframes, using stop motion animation. So now I want to go up, and on animation, I want to make sure that at the moment I'm not using stop motion animation as my default, and I want to select, do a shift select on all these frames, do a right click here, and we want to set motion keyframes. So we will set motion keyframes for everything here. And that's the first part of the process. So now we have motion keyframes, so we have in-betweens, all right? And I can play this. Let's go ahead and loop and play this. So now I have my in-betweens. And we've got some leg popping and some things. That's to be expected. All right. But we can see that we have interpolated motion on my in-betweens. And so this is where we start with. So let me stop this. And we'll go right up here. And the very first things I want to work on are the two legs and the legs and the hips. The first note I want to make to everybody is this hip. When you're doing a animation and you're doing it in a treadmill and you want to make it so you can then use it, you do not ever want to take this and move it forward or backward in the X direction, okay? So anything that you do with the hips, you can do rotations with it, okay? You can rotate it, and that's acceptable, but you don't want to go forward or backward. The problem is when you cycle that, you're going to get popping of the body, and it will look out of place. It won't look right. You want to only go up and down. So the key to doing that is when you want to do a translation on the hips, if you hold down the shift key and the first thing you do is you move up and down, harmony will actually prevent you from moving in the X direction. It will let you only key this in the Y direction, which is exactly what you want. So let's go in, and I'm going to first work on this right leg. So we have the right leg here, and the very first thing I want to do is I'm taking, you can see that it's taking about 3 frames to put that foot down, all right? And that's really not the way I want this to happen. So I want this toe to go down on the very next frame. So I go to the very next frame, I take this, and I bring this so it's about equal, and I hold shift. I want this to go straight down, and I bring the foot straight down, all right? So we'll bring that straight down, and then let's go here, and I'll bring this back a little bit, and go here, and actually bring this, whoops, do that, bring that up a little bit, all right? So now we get an instant foot down, all right? So the foot comes down, and then we go to the down position, then it starts to slide back. We go to our pass-through position, our high point, and it comes out. All right, so that's a little bit messed up there. And also, I can see that we're too high, so let's slide this down a little bit. The foot shouldn't be off the ground. Same kind of thing. Rock that forward. Actually, I want to take this, put that like that. Go to here, come forward, come down. Swing that down and swing that up. All right. So we can complete the animation. I really need this very next cycle right here, which is this one. Okay, when we loop it, we won't want it, but we want these keyframes right here. So I'm going to shift select these, and I'm going to do a copy cells from timeline and go out to here and shift select and do a paste cells in the timeline. All right, that way I have all this going. What happened to my leg there? How did we lose that? Let's go on here. Oh, okay, it didn't paste. That's what happened. So, copy cells from the timeline. Paste cells in the timeline. So there it is. All right. Just didn't paste down. I must not have had it selected. All right, so let's keep on going here. All right, so we have this. And we can now work with this all the way through. And so with the right leg, the first thing we want to do is we need to set the velocity. And so the right foot, okay, is going in, and actually I want a scribble layer here, so I'm going to create a new drawing layer. Let's call that scratch. Add and close. So there's my scratch layer. I don't want that there. Put that right there. So my scratch layer, I can just go in and paint here. So the feet are going to be moving back this way, in this direction. All right? And when we animate, and we animate Walker, he is ultimately going to go this direction, right? So what has to happen is we have to balance that the speed, okay? So our speed going backwards, so our reverse speed has to equal our forward speed. If we can make these two exactly equal, when you plant the feet, they will appear locked and they won't skate, all right? Anything where you have the case where the reverse speed is not equal to the forward speed, I don't care who's faster or slower, this is the condition you get which causes the ice skating. So the whole goal of this exercise is to make sure that our reverse speed is equal to our forward speed, all right? So the way we accomplish this is we first need to determine what our reverse speed is. And it's the reverse speed in the feet. So we go in here and I look at the toe and I expand this down. And we're moving in the X direction. So I want the reverse speed in the X direction. And the way I can do that is I scroll down the parameters for the toe. And I double click on position X. All right. And we look at the foot as it goes back, all right? And what we want is we want all the speed between this point, the first contact, to this point, which is the next contact. We want the velocity in between these 2 points to be exactly the same, all right? So that's right here is the next contact, and right here is the first contact. So it's between frame 1 and frame 13. And at frame 1 we have a value of about -1.8. And here at frame 13 we have a value, let's see, what's this value? That's 1.8 there. Excuse me, the value here at frame 1 is about 13. Excuse me, 1.3, positive 1.3. So that's our position in X, all right? So what we need to do is, I said, between this point and this point, we want this to be linear. Well, that's pretty simple to do. I just go in here and get the keyframes that are in between and delete them. They're not necessary. And now I have an exactly linear line that goes from this point to this point. And that's what's key, is this needs to be a straight linear line in going from the first right foot out to the toe back and the next left foot out, all right? And to make our math simple, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of some of these values past the decimal point. We're going to start, so at frame 1, we're going to be at a value of 1.3. and at frame 13 I'm going to be at a value of minus 1.8. all right, so here we are at frame 13, minus 1.8, and frame 1 a value of positive 1.3. That is for our right foot. All right, now what we do on the right foot we absolutely have to do on the left foot. All right, so we go in on my left foot. Let's go down here. So here's my left toe. And the left foot comes up, moves through. Just ignore the fact that the right leg's gone wonky here. We're going to have to fix that up, all right? But we need to set the velocity first. So we here we get the left foot comes up, and here the left foot's going through space. Here the left foot makes contact. So here is the speed that we want that was the same for the left foot that we did for the right. So we want to come in, and the very next frame I want this to be flat. So I'm going to take this and put this straight down so it's right from that point. So we go down, and then here he slides and goes back to this point here, and he's straight back. So for this one, same kind of thing. Let's look at the velocity here. So I'm going from frame 13, which is exactly where we left off with the right leg. So from frame 13 through frame 25, we have the same kind of thing, right? So I need to go in, because there's 12 frames in between here. We went from frame 1 to frame 13. That's 12 frames. In other words, 13 minus 1 is 12. All right, I'm going from frame 13 to frame 25. That's 12 frames in between, right? So we add 12 to 13, that's 25. Same kind of thing. So I'll just need to go in here and delete these keyframes. And at this point in time, same kind of thing. I'm going to make this a value of 1.3. And I'm going to make this a value. The other one was minus 1.8. I want this one to be minus 1.8 also. So they're exactly the same. All right. So now the speed from here to here, okay, is exactly the same on the left foot as the speed was on the right foot. Okay. So now we have set up our walk cycle, so we know that our speed, let me call up my scratch layer here. Here's where we're going to do our simple math. So our speed now is set, so we know we're going to have the case where our reverse speed is equal take out that. So our reverse speed is in fact equal to our forward speed. So what is that speed? Well, velocity is simply distance over time, all right? And in our case, we are moving from a positive 1.3 to a minus 1.8. So this net distance, all right, is equal to 3.1 units. I don't care what the units represent, it's just 3.1 units, right? So we go from a positive 1.3 to a minus 1.8. That was our forward distance for both feet, all right? And we did that over a period of 12 frames, correct? So if we do that over 12 frames, what our speed is 3.1 units for every 12 frames. So this is the important number right here. It's 3.1 units for 12 frames. So the next thing I need to do is I need to go in and I want to clean this up. All right, so I've got legs popping all over the place, right? You can see things got disjointed, and so I need to go in and I need to clean things up. Now, a couple of the tricks that I will do is I will go in and I'm going to be working with each of the joints here in the leg. But the thing I won't do is I won't go in on the toe here and add keyframes by moving this around. Now, if I do move it around, not that being said, if I do move it around, what I need to do is roll this down with that selected, double click here, and come back, and I may end up popping in some keyframes. I need to delete those. All right, this needs to be the straight line with only a keyframe at the start of the toe going back to the front. All right, so from here to here always needs to have no keyframes in it. In X, all right, you can have keyframes in Y, rotation, and everything else, but you can't have any keyframes in your X translation. So we do that. And you probably need to do a little bit of back and forth editing. So you do some back and forth editing. The other thing that's very key, like I mentioned before, is when you are working with these hips, you only want to modify things so the hips are going up and down. Now, you may have some situations where you get knee popping, and I'll show that for a different tutorial. But the way to fix most knee popping in harmony, it has to do with where you place the hips and how you get the legs stretched. Knee popping is essentially when you've gone in and the knees are coming down. All right, let's get that. So the knee comes down, and so the leg is like this and like this, and the knee is starting to move backwards with the motion, but then all of a sudden you take the knee and it goes, I'm going to exaggerate this, but the knee goes this way. So the knee has been going this way, and then all of a sudden it pops and goes that way, and then the next frame, the knee goes back that way. This is called knee pop, all right? So when the knee pops forward, and then it slams back again. You want to avoid that. In fact, you don't want to have that at all. And the best way to correct that is with the position of the hips in their up and down position. So again, I will create a second tutorial to do that. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pause while I clean this up. So let me hit pause, and I'm going to clean this up, and we'll come back and we'll put in the forward progression so you can see that. So I'm back here, and I did some correcting on this. It's not perfect, but the feet position, the speed is correct. I still got some knee pop. You can see that going on there. And but the feet position are correct, and if I go in and we look at the right toe, we look at our velocity, we can see I stayed linear right in between there. And if we go on the left toe and I look at that one, we can see there I stayed linear in between. All right, again, like I said, there's some other cleaning up that needs to be done, but I don't want to belabor the tutorial here with that. All right, so we have the legs cleaned up, we have linear motion between everything, and now what I want to be able to do is create a walk cycle. And the way I create a walk cycle is, let me go down here, and we want to cycle this for a number of times. The correct number happens to be 96, I think, if we do 4 cycles. So if I go down here to frame 96, I can do 4 cycles. So I'm going to go in and I select my first frame, and I'm going to shift select down to here. Now I'm shift selecting to 24. All right, see this? So I'm starting on frame 1 and I go to frame 24. All right, which is 1 cycle before this last one. All right, why? Because this cycle right here, this 25th cycle, is also equal to the first cycle. So if I want to paste in cycles, I want to paste 24 frame cycles, not 25 frame cycles. If I pasted 25 frame cycles, this frame would be repeated twice, and we don't want that. So I go again, and I select here, shift select to there, right mouse click, comes up, and I say copy cells from timeline. All right, now I go to the 25th frame, I place the playhead on the 25th frame, right click here, and I say paste cycle. All right. So if I go in here and say paste cycle, it'll ask me how many cycles do I want. In this case, I'm going to paste in 3 cycles. So we will have 4 cycles, 4 complete cycles. So I'm going to paste in 3 cycles and say OK. And it pasted in 3 cycles. All right. So then if I go up here and we look at this, all right, so I can go in and loop this, and we have 4 complete cycles of Walker walking. All right. So now all we need to do is get Walker to walk across the stage. And this is where the problem lies in with the ways it was done in the past. So I have this peg here, and let me fix the pivot point on the peg and put it at a better place. So let's put it there. And so now I want to animate this peg. And I want Walker to go across the stage. So in frame 1, I'm going to take Walker and we're going to put him over here. All right. And now we want him to walk across the stage. Well, it's a guessing game, the way it was done in the past. And so what you did is you went to here, and then you went out to frame 96, and you said, well, I think Walker's going to go this far. All right. And so you just made a guess. All right. Because that's all you could do. And so then you went in, and if we hit play, and actually I want to make sure that this is interpolated in between here. So click there, shift select in between there, and I want this to be motion keyframes. So I have interpolation in between. All right. And now we want to loop this, and we hit play, and he's approximately going, but he's still ice skating. Okay, I can see that the feet are moving. All right, so it's not exact. So how do we get it exact? How do we know the exact distance to place this last keyframe if I'm going 96 frames? All right, and how do I place that? So the way we do that first is how many frames are we cycling? We're going from frame 1 to frame 96. So let me get on my scratch pad here. And 3.1 units for every 12 frames. That was the important number. All right, let me get a new scratch pad. So we'll get a new scratch pad and call this scratch 2. Add that. All right, and close this. So if I have scratch 2 and my magic number 1 was 3.1 units for every 12 frames, right? Well, we know we want to go how many frames? We want to go 96 minus 1 frames. We want to go 95 frames. So that's our time. All right. So what is the distance here that we want to go? How can we find that out? Well, I already have something here. I have 3.1 units for every 12 frames. If I take that and multiply that by 95 frames, frames here cancel in units, so I have 3.1 times 95 divided by 12. And if we run the number here, 3.1 times 95 and divide by 12, that's going to equal 24.542 frames, rounding off, or 24.54 units. All right. So I already have a keyframe set up here. All right, so I can go in on my pivot here, and let's look at the position X and what we do here. So I go here, I start at a value of 0.8. Again, to make the math easy, let's put this at a value of 1. All right. And so then the value here what did we calculate? We calculated the value needed to be 24.5, I think is what I said, right? So oh, I know it's wrong. My scratch doesn't come all the way. .542 units, right? So we want 24.54. So let me go back up here, select that, and I change this number to 24.54 and enter that in and hit close. And let me turn my scratch off. So now we've put in the exact number of units in distance that is going to equal, so we get a straight walk and we don't have any ice skating. So let's go ahead and play this and let's see if it worked out. And that looks pretty good. Like I said, I've got some knee pops and some other issues with my legs, but the feet are not ice skating, all right? And the whole key to making this work, again, is what we did is we went in and we set the speed. So we set the reverse speed, right? So our reverse speed was equal to our forward speed. And this is the whole key to making this work. So you make the reverse speed of the feet linear, and you make the forward speed that you progress your whole walking character on equal to what the reverse speed of the feet was. The second thing you want to keep in mind is you only animate the hips up and down during your treadmill walk cycle. You don't animate your hips going forward and back. If you animate your hips going forward and back, you're going to get popping on the hips just like I get the knee popping. So hopefully this will help you out and help other people. And this has been Phil with Phil Effects.